So, today I want to talk about fast food companies' attempts to overturn a California law that protects workers. For those of you who are not aware, on September 5th, Labor Day in the United States, Governor Newsom of California signed a bill into law known as AB 257 or the Fast Recovery Act. What the law essentially does is, as of January 1st of 2023, it establishes a council of 10 people from both the management and employee side of the fast food industry that would develop state and industry-wide minimum standards for working conditions and wages within California, including a potential increase of the minimum wage for restaurant workers to as high as $22 per hour. Additionally, it's worth noting that the law would provide protections for both non unionized workers as well as unionized ones. And this applies for all restaurants with over 100 chain stores within the United States that also has stores in the state of California. This law was fought for by unions and is a massive improvement from the complete lack of oversight and accountability that has previously occurred, and provides workers and worker representatives the ability to have at least some say across the industry, and not just in one storefront and one union at a time. So, naturally, the fast food businesses have taken issue with this law being passed, as the council's decisions could lead to them having to pay workers more and provide better and stricter safety standards that could be more easily monitored and regulated. And so, these businesses have fought back. First and foremost, by spending an exorbitant amount of money to create a campaign against the law. Now, we have here that the Save Local Restaurants Coalition said as of September 30th that it had raised around $12.7 million to fight the law known as the Fast Recovery Act. Corporate brands have contributed $9.9 million, and individual franchisees have given $2 million, including the owners of KFC and McDonald's restaurants. Trade associations account for the rest, the coalition had said. The coalition wants to postpone the implementation of the law set to begin on January 1st and let the voters decide through the state's referendum process whether to permanently block the law in 2024. Opponents need to collect hundreds of thousands of signatures for the referendum to take place, and to put implementation of the law on hold until the vote is held. Now, it always amazes me how these companies can raise nearly $13 million within a month of a law being passed in order to prevent oversight and labor rights. But they can't just pay their workers a living wage and give them some paid sick time off. Some of the companies that contributed to this fund are the very same ones that wanted to hire 14-year-olds to work instead of paying people more during the pandemic, all the while crying about how nobody wants to work. Now, when it comes to the potential postponement of the law and these companies seeking the state's referendum process, they are going to claim that they are doing this because they want to know what the people think of this. All of a sudden, these companies that are run by authoritarian bosses are going to claim that they are the bastions of democracy. The real reason they want this is because they know they can use their combined wealth in order to manipulate public opinion of the law over that time before the referendum comes to be voted on. Additionally, it buys them at least 2 more years before they have to deal with the consequences of the law. In fact, they are copying a strategy that has actually been implemented before. This is almost the exact same strategy that companies like Uber and Lyft had used to circumvent California AB 5 in 2019. Now we have here a lot of the information on Ballotopedia. But AB 5 was meant to protect gig economy workers and have them recognized as standard employees instead of independent contractors. Several gig economy businesses pooled their funds to create a ballot initiative that was then known as Prop 22, which ended up receiving a yes vote to add an exception for gig economy workers and allow them to remain independent contractors. This, of course, was due to a large amount of money being invested into the Vote Yes campaign, with nearly $200 million being spent, compared to only $19 million in the opposition, which was raised by SEIU. Now, the whole idea here is to create a propaganda campaign using false public perceptions and their exorbitant wealth, in addition to using confusing or misleading language. The propaganda even starts in their name: Save Local Restaurants. The name implies that these restaurants, that are massive corporations, are somehow the victims of tragic government overreach, that they need to be saved from some sort of outside force, rather than acknowledging the reality that these restaurants have abused and exploited workers since they've been in existence. Further, by defining their restaurants as local in this name, they are trying to invoke an image of a small local business, rather than the giant soulless corporate structures that they actually are. This framing is especially useful for people who may not grasp the full extent of the situation and may hear the name and imagine small local businesses getting victimized rather than large corporations being held accountable. Now, we can see some of their other propaganda on their website. Now, we have here that in the call for a statewide referendum, they state, quote, California small business owners, restaurateurs, franchisees, employees, consumers, and community based organizations announced the formation of a coalition to refer the FAST Act back to voters and suspend its implementation until they have a say in November of 2024. This right here shows off exactly the type of propaganda that I described. By placing small business owners up front while simultaneously talking about how employees, consumers, and community organizations need to have a say, they position themselves as seemingly pro democratic, while ignoring the fact that workers have already spoken out on this issue and fought for it. And under the so called facts section here, they provide no real statistics, but claim that the cost of living will get worse. Food insecurity will become worse. It'll cost millions of dollars for taxpayers, eliminate jobs, including small businesses, and that workers and minority rights groups oppose it. This is propaganda at its finest, that completely misses the reality that workers and their unions fought for this law to be passed, and that there is not evidence to show that workers gaining a wage increase would massively devastate restaurants, especially these chain stores that make record breaking profits yearly. Suddenly, these businesses have found a heart, and suddenly they care about food insecurity, while many of their employees have historically needed food stamps to survive and are refused a living wage every day. And if this wasn't enough, the people that they are paying to go out and canvass to get the proposition put into a referendum are now being accused of lying to people. We actually have here a story from More Perfect Union where they describe the effort to kill the groundbreaking labor law is already in full swing. According to complaints filed Thursday by SEIU with the California Attorney General, the Secretary of State, paid canvassers are at multiple locations across California have told voters that signing the petition to put AB 257 on the ballot would raise the minimum wage, obscuring the fact that the bill in question has already been signed into law. SEIU included video footage of multiple canvassers misrepresenting the ballot initiative to voters at different California locations. Yeah, SEIU has video evidence of these canvassers lying to people, telling them that the ballot initiative would do exactly what the law that's already in place would do. These are the levels that the capital class will stoop to in order to avoid laws that they do not want. They can buy their way into and out of any law and will lie in any way they have to along the way in order to continue the status quo, which continues to generate profit for them at the cost of workers. This is why, for as good of a measure that like AB 257 is, as long as authoritarian bosses are able to control the economy and politics in this way, we will not be able to stop things like corporate greed. Only by developing a model of worker cooperatives, where workers are in charge of their own democratically and consensus based industries, will we potentially see an end to this type of lobbying. Under capitalism, it will continue to exist. But until that point, we need to speak out against this type of propaganda, and make sure people are as informed as possible on these issues, and that AB 257 is defended at all costs, especially because a raise in the minimum wage and an improving of conditions for restaurant workers will mean a good thing for all employees across the state of California and probably within the whole of the United States itself. So, with that said, if you've learned something here today, consider liking the video, subscribing, and leaving a comment, as well as joining my Discord where we have conversations like these. If you're in a financial place to do so, and only if you're in a financial place to do so, please do consider supporting me on Patreon, as it goes a long way to helping me produce more content like this. The links for everything that I mentioned are in the description down below. With that said, my name is Anarchist Tara. Thank you so much for watching.